You know who's keeping track of the border crisis, of the invasion of what will be 2 million criminal immigrants? My good friend Bob Price. Bob is with Breitbart Texas, my go-to guy on the border. He actually goes down there, and he's allowed to tell the truth. As you know, the stations are not really. Bob Price, welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show.
Sam, it's amazing the lawlessness that's going on and being encouraged by Democrats in Congress and the Democrats in the White House. You look at the lack of transparency with the Biden administration, not allowing anybody into these facilities. When their officials come down to tour the border, they're not allowed to take any press in with them. They're not allowed to take any questions from the press. And then when they return to Washington, they don't seem to have the time or the urgency to brief the President of the United States on their tour. It's just amazing the things that are going on in D.C.
Then you got a federal employee dying at this facility near our airport in Houston. The place is shut down quickly, within hours, right? The criminal immigrants were put on buses and stuff and moved right away, and we're not allowed to know anything about it, Bob Price of Breitbart.
Well, and similar things are happening at facilities in San Antonio and in other places where children are being sexually assaulted, and yet no one is allowed to come in there and look at these facilities and tell the American people the tragedy and the atrocities that are being committed by the Biden administration.
It's amazing. And by the way, what day are we up to? The vice president, who was supposed to be in charge of this task force, which was all baloney. And folks, it was all falderall. He passed 20-something days that the VP is not allowed to go down to the border and not allowed to have a press conference, it appears?
Well, and then the big news out of the White House was that they came to these agreements with Guatemala and Mexico and Honduras to stop the flow of migrants from crossing the southern borders of these countries. Well, lo and behold, that was a policy that President Trump put into place. They're grabbing credit for it, just like they grabbed credit for the booming economy, post-COVID economy. They're not doing anything to help, and they're doing everything to hurt, and yet they want to claim credit for these.
Bob Price, longtime friend from Breitbart, Texas. As we always have the long list of stories that TV stations are not allowed to cover, it appears. You've got human sex trafficking, which is wide open, that the Democrats have no problem with on the invasion of our southern border. And then you got fentanyl killing kids left and right and adults coming in from communist China. So these are two major things that reporters are not really allowed to go into. Talk about the human sex trafficking and the fentanyl coming in for drug distribution from the communists.
Well, we're seeing thousands and thousands of unaccompanied children being shipped into the United States by the Mexican drug cartels. And you have to know that many of these children are young girls, and are going to be put into the human trafficking industry and the mechanisms that take place all across the country. But it's not just the children. You have the women who are abused through this whole process. Men are beaten and extorted and treated horribly, put into indentured servitude at construction sites and places like that around the country. And then, it's just one atrocity after another that takes place that, this administration just seems to be encouraging.
Right. Who do you think, Bob Price of Breitbart, Texas, who do you think will be the first Democrat who breaks the vow of omerta and says, look, this has got to end. I'm a Democrat, but we got to stop human sex trafficking, and we got to stop the fentanyl coming in and killing our youths? Who do you think will be the first one who just breaks with it? Now, they'll pay a serious price because you're not allowed to tell the truth if you're part of this cabal. But do you think, will it be a Joe Manchin or something, or Kristen Sinema, or who?
Well, I think Kristen Sinema has been critical of the administration on the border policy, as has Congressman Henry Cuellar from Laredo.
Right.
They're feeling the effects of this firsthand in their districts, and they understand what's going on down there. You're seeing Democrat sheriffs along the border. You're seeing Democrat mayors along the border, all decrying the policies of the Biden administration that intentionally created this border conflict. And you mentioned the fentanyl trafficking. When all these Border Patrol agents are tied up babysitting all these unaccompanied children that are being forced across the border, that stops them from interdicting the shipments of fentanyl that are being smuggled into the United States. And the drug cartels know this, and they leverage this.
Right.
And they'll move a group of 300 people across the border to tie up every Border Patrol agent in a 50-mile radius, and then they go 10, 15 miles down the river and bring their drugs across, or bring over their high-value special interest aliens across who are paying them up to $25,000 to smuggle them into the United States.
Bob Price of Breitbart, Texas. And I read that the cartels are loving the people who control Joe Biden because they're making $14 to $16 million per day with the complete blessing of the Biden controlling people. Is that an accurate number, 14 to 16, that you hear on the ground?
Well, it's really easy math to do. They're getting about, for the average migrants crossing the border, they're getting about $4,000 to $6,000 per head. And so you multiply that times the 2,000 people a day that are apprehended just in the Rio Grande Valley sector, and extrapolate that out to the other border sectors, and it amounts to a ton of money that's being pumped into the cartels that control northern Mexico and many other parts of Mexico as well. And we're just building their business for them. We've created a whole new business model. They're advertising on Facebook down in Central America that they've got safe passage to the United States, no river crossings, no walking, blah, 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 blah. And Facebook allows this. They say they keep taking it down, but every time they do, 5 more pop up. And yet you can't advertise anything that has anything to do with the gun industry on Facebook. But these drug cartels are running free rein down there in Central America.
And they're very appreciative of the people controlling Joe Biden to have such profits like that. Bob Price of Breitbart, Texas. The invasion numbers will be estimated to be 2 million people breaking into America by the end of the summer. But it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight, Bob Price. The invasion could be 3 million, could be 4 million crossing illegally, breaking in. Do you see any end in sight?
Well, there is no end in sight. The only thing that will stop these people from crossing the border illegally is the knowledge of certainty that they will be returned to their country when they cross the border. That was proven under the Trump administration when they implemented these policies and cut the flow of migrant families and unaccompanied children by 95%. 95%. And the Biden administration quickly on their first day overturned all of those policies, and the flood began exponentially. So it's a man-made crisis created specifically by Joe Biden. The Biden administration was fully briefed by the Department of Customs and Border Protection on the consequences of what would happen if they did this. And the people that worked with Border Patrol during the transition process seemed to say that they understood what was going to happen. But Biden went ahead anyway, politics only, and stopped these successful policies that Donald Trump put in place.
Hey, man, they know they can't win an election fair and square. They're shipping in FDA's Future Democrats of America. H.R. 1 allows them to go vote on day of election, and if they're on a pathway to citizenship, their vote will be counted, and that's exactly what it's all about. It has nothing to do with anything other than trying to steal power.